Joe has just left the building, so it's down to me at the moment. He's got the presentation, he's got everything. So I'm just going to stall for time a little bit and hope that he hasn't run out for the whole hour. So our journey to AppSheet was pretty much just jumping in and seeing what it could do, first of all. We then went back and actually looked at the documentation, all of that kind of stuff. I finally did the training and got my foundation certification. Hurry up, Joe, come back. But yeah, it's an amazing piece of software that I recommend everybody look at, especially if you're using Google Sheets. It's the number one thing to look at. How many people have actually used AppSheet in the it's making me sweat.
According to our poll, we have 8 folks who have used AppSheet, 5 people who have not, and we've got more people on the call than that. Peter, just to let you know, there's a number of folks who would be interested in a beginner's AppSheet template and would find that helpful. There might already be that. If so, maybe you can share that with us, but hopefully that helps sets the stage a bit.
Yeah, and the templates, you'll see Peter's name all over the AppSheet community. Templates are really easy to share, and it's a good way of building up your knowledge, like looking behind somebody else's template, which Peter has produced a lot of those on the site. But Joe, you're back now. You left at just the time it started. So
sorry, the children, so they're off today, and I'm off, but I forgot I was doing this. So I was like, oh, okay, children, here's some sweets. Please don't come in the room. And they've come in the room 3 times. And I'm like, I'm going to get in trouble for giving you sweets from mum. And you're still not obeying the rules. So yeah, bribery just didn't work. Yeah, I'm happy to go if to go through the presentation and go start if everyone else is.
Yep.
Cool. I will share my screen now. Cool. So I haven't got a long slide deck for you, so and most of it is going to be demo, so don't worry, I'm not going to bore you with slides. Well, I am to start with. So I wanted to kind of give you an idea of where we came from in our problem area, rather than just say this is how we're using AppSheet, to kind of give you what problems we had and how we think AppSheet solved that for us. So this is our kind of journey with case management, and I'll move on to that. And this is, we look at every single department, the way we work, the way we kind of look at each individual department's piece of software that they use to do their process. And I actually said it to a supply once, it's like 50 shades of beige rather than 50 shades of grey, because every single bit of software we're looking at is very similar to another department's software. So something comes in, an incident happens, a process happens, and then basically either the customer gets an email or something happens and they get something back and there's an output. And it seems to be the same in every single department. So they're pretty much all the same. And I don't know if it's the same in America, but in the UK, there's like kind of 4 big companies that do like software for councils, and it is kind of the same everywhere you look, which causes us kind of problems because we're limited by what they can do. And that's one of the things, is there is no integration. So we've got these softwares that cost quite a lot of money, but they don't integrate. And if you want any integration of any sort between them, you have to pay, and it's a custom piece of work. So you pay for them to do that. And if it breaks with an upgrade, you then pay to get that fixed. I don't know if it's the same in America, but in the UK, like there's 4 big companies, and pretty much to kind of integrate, you have to pay for that. So there isn't anything out of the box. There's no like open APIs or anything like that. Yeah, cash flow and paywalls, which is kind of what I kind of mentioned, that everything is a custom piece of work. So you want to add a field in, you want to add something in, you want to change that process slightly. It's like, yeah, you can do that, but it's going to be £2,000 a day, or it's £1,000 a day to do that consultancy. And yeah, and everything costs money when we're talking to those suppliers. So there is also an inflexibility with a lot of software that we buy, you know, and lack of willing to develop, lack of willing to, like, you say, oh, this would be really great if you had this, and they're just like, yeah, and they won't put it in, or they won't want to change, or if they do, they'll try and get you to spend money and stuff like that. So definitely inflexible. So we kind of needed a new way of working, and we wanted something that would be office-based working, would work in home, but would give us the freedom to kind of work anywhere, because most of our stuff do work from home now. And obviously Chromebooks, G Suite, or Workspace. So we needed that kind of flexibility with software. So we have a set of digital principles that we have to abide by, and basically it's customer led. So if our customers, you know, need something, that's our first priority. Cloud first, so it has to be in the cloud, has to be accessible everywhere. Reuse and improve. So if we have a process, if we have a piece of software, if we have something that meets, say, the first two principles, such as Google, we should reuse what we have in Workspace. So, you know, we shouldn't just go out and buy a new piece of software because it does 10% more than what we've got already. So it does 90%, like say Workspace does 90% for us. You know, to get the extra 10%, is it worth paying for more, paying for another piece of software? And the answer should be no. We should just deal with the kind of 90%. Our fourth one is increase efficiency. So always making sure that we're creating processes and workflows that always work. And then digital is for everyone, which covers kind of the accessibility side of things, as well as meaning that we have to get inclusion of digital inclusion, making sure that people are always included in everything we do with digital, and no one is disenfranchised by any technology or anything we do.
Hey,
So,
Joe, would you mind
yeah.
if I just pause? There's a couple of questions in
Oh,
the chat.
sorry. I can't do two things at once.
I figured I would just help you out, and yeah. So there's a couple of questions about compliance and also about who can use AppSheet. And Peter, do you mind if I put you on the spot on that one about from a compliance perspective? Is there any chance that AppSheet is FedRAMP approved?
Yeah, I need to check on the current status of this, because I know that it's in the works. So I'm unsure offhand. I hesitate to give you my opinion on this just to make sure that it's correct.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, I noticed the other questions around, let's see, like let's see, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find like the licensing. There's some questions around like internal versus external use, Google account versus non-Google account. Some of that has licensing implications, whether it's like inside your organization or outside. So if it's like a public facing form, some ways to be thinking about this. Is the person logged in at all? Do they have to be logged in to use the app? Are they logged in using Google or something else? You can use Google, or you can use other authentication options to log into an app. And then also, is the user part of your workspace organization, or are they outside of it? Those are some variables just to be thinking about. It doesn't necessarily have huge significant implications, but that just as you're making a plan, those are details that you'd want to be taking into account.
Julie, does that answer your question?
It sounds to me from that like it is possible to have some sort of public facing form.
Oh, it is.
Okay,
It is
and
possible to have a public facing one. And actually, when you go in the settings, it will tell you what license that you need to have for certain settings. It says core, or it will say enterprise, or blah, 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 blah on each setting as you try and change it.
and there. Okay.
Thanks, Joe. Sorry, yeah, I just
quickly-
wanted to confirm that it is possible, definitely, to
Okay, thank you.
public usage and for non-Google sign-ins.
Yeah, we've got some open apps that Nathaniel created, and we've got some closed ones that are just internal. We've got some that open up to Google, and there are various options because it integrates with Box, Dropbox, lots of different services that you can actually choose all of those different services, or say all providers, and then they can log in with any of those accounts into your app sheet. Yeah. So
you. Sorry to
is there
interrupt,
any?
Joe. I just wanted to make sure those didn't get lost in the shuffle. And
Yeah.
Dan, you've got an answer that will be forthcoming. So thanks, guys.
Not loaded question. So is there any more, or are you happy for me to continue? Cool. Right, I will continue. Stop me if you need to, and you're welcome to raise your hand and ask me a question or anything. So I'll just get through some of the slides and then we'll get on to a demo. So we did look at a lot of different things, and if you're any good at the logo game, you might be able to see some of them in the background. So it's HubSpot, Salesforce, and Zoho CRM, and we kind of looked through all of them. We actually went with a product from a company, and it was just too complicated to build processes. So yeah, AppSheet was like perfect, and it meets our digital principles of, you know, reuse and that sort of thing, and we got it. So yeah, we went crazy. So these are some of our corporate apps. So we built and I'll show you this, we built like a home dashboard. So we're trying to build, when we started, we had like lots of just sporadic different apps everywhere, anywhere, and they were kind of this owned by Nathaniel, owned by me, owned by person, you know, and they were just kind of going out. They were working, but we tried to bring it back into like a corporate launcher and a corporate way of getting to all these different apps. So we unified all the icons and kind of created a standard of how we were going to kind of do them in terms of colors and the way they work. So that's just some of our launcher apps, which I will show you. One of the apps that we first built, Nathaniel and I, was the desk booking app, as you can see here, and it uses the Google Map integration, and we created our own separate map. So you can see here, it's like cut the little letters off, like north with a thing, but if you zoom in close, it will show you north. So it's not that we can't spell north, although Nathaniel and I are notorious for not being able to spell. And that's that Google Map thing where you know, when you look on Google Maps and they've broken it down into squares and then they're stitching it over each other. That's actually what it's doing to our image. So it's treating our image like a map. Nathaniel worked out how to do the X and Y coordinates from a spreadsheet. So we ended up dropping these pins on, and each one of them you can click on, book a desk, and yeah, it was just quite nice to use Google Maps as a booking system. It was just, yeah, quite nice. And then you get kind of a drop down box on the side that then you can check in and book your desk and see the calendar and kind of go from there. Nathaniel, did you want to go through your apps here? Sorry about the bottom one, it's confidential, so we've had to censor everything.
Yeah, so being part of
Cool.
digital transformation, a lot of processes, when you go out to satellite teams, they're like, here's a big bit of paper or multiple bits of paper that we've been collecting for the last 10 years. We want something better. And they have ideas in their head. They're like, sometimes we started looking at Google Sheets. I think we can do something with that. And then you look at their skills on Google Sheets and you're like, yeah, maybe not. And then once you sat down with them, you realize actually a lot of things are really simple and the same. Like cleaning toilets is pretty much the same as checking a life buoy when you're thinking about making an app. There's some action that's happened and you record that against it. You have this kind of one-to-many relationship. You've got lots of pins and there's different actions that can happen. And there's been like savings like straight away, that knowing which street bins are collected. We have the operators really easy for them to use. They're able to say how full the bin is, and then with the data we're pulling back, we can go, well, we only need to go to these bins at this amount of time. And you've got the formulas as well that you can use there. So we use formulas to say this bin only needs to be collected once a day. This bin needs to be collected once every 2 days or once every 3 days. So there's savings that can be realized very early on. And it also, the Lifebuoy one was good fun for me because there's somebody that always kind of rocks up at my desk and takes a couple of hours just explaining something to me, which isn't that difficult, but I was able to work with him and he made the app pretty much from the data he had in a Google Sheet with a little help in under an hour, and that was finished. I was able to finish that conversation. But yeah, I love it. And it's from like having an idea or a spreadsheet or a process to something, you can have something production ready within an hour. Joe, I'll pass back to you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Nathaniel. Yeah, and knowing that person, that so you actually had a quicker thing by building an app than talking to that person for 2 hours. That's not normally said, is it? So rather than talking about it, you'll build it. And Nathaniel is master of that, because normally I'll say to him, do what you can on the actual call, and then we'll present it at the end. So between us, like we sometimes trying to put together the solution for the person. Otherwise, you end up coming away with more questions, more things, more, and it's much easier to kind of grab people together and actually build it rather than talk about building it, because it is quite easy to build, as we will kind of show you. So the other one, do you want me to play this, Nathaniel, is about street cleansing, and I asked Nathaniel to put this on, and he can probably explain it better than I, unless you want me to do it, Nathaniel.
No, so this one is one that's in the pipe work. It's got to go through some of our regulations, our laws in the UK, but it was yeah, a bit of work that instead of a team that would go out and inspect their work essentially, which our audit team didn't like, saying how clean the streets were, that putting a camera and taking a photo every 3 seconds and then pushing that data back into an app so that it could be marked more broadly from people outside of the team and potentially members of the public longer term. Yeah, could be something that would be amazing. You can show the video because it probably explains it better, Joe.
Yeah, so I'll just say, so this is an idea where we this is all Nathaniel's idea, and it's brilliant. And he puts a phone, it takes a picture every 3 seconds, like he says. They're driving around in a car around our area, a bit like Google did when they kind of created those street views and all of that. And it's taking a picture, and then Nathaniel's using the AI to say, you know, what's litter, what's graffiti, what's this, what's that, you know, even bins, or, you know, is there other things in there that we can start picking up on? Because as a council, obviously our trucks and our vehicles are moving around the district all the time. If we can leverage that technology, or leverage that kind of work that they're already surveying the area, it's just they're not looking for it. If we can get the technology to survey the area while they're just driving around doing their normal jobs, then we could flag stuff a lot easier and understand timelines of when something happened, like graffiti. So if someone graffiti something, but we saw yesterday that there wasn't a graffiti in that place, then you know, we can narrow down the investigation and all of those things. But I'll play the video and hopefully I can get it widescreen. Yeah, so there we go. So this is the app and the different things that it's picking up on, or Nathaniel's choosing.
Yeah, so the longer term goal is that once you've got enough data there and classified, that then you can start using Google's other tools to actually think like somebody that's marking it, rather than the time sort of actually going out and marking that.
And also the little
Just
squares that, yeah, and also
Sorry.
the little squares is where you've broken up the map into what do Google call it? It's a bit like what 3 words, isn't it? What's it called?
Plus codes.
Plus codes, which is better than what 3 words, because it goes deeper and it is a continual thing as it goes down. So as it gets bigger or smaller, you've got like the first bit and then it adds on so that you can actually tell where it is, whereas what 3 words is just the whole world split into tiny little squares. But not as catchy name, Google. Plus codes. You know, need a catchier name. Yeah, and I'll move on to the demo. If you've got any questions, feel free to kind of ask me. But what I will do is go straight into the demo if I don't see anyone's hands come up or anything right on the screen. Google enabled camera. Oh, who can fill AppSheet forms? I just seen one at the bottom. You technically you can do it as open so that anyone can fill them out, but also any Google account can fill them out, or any of the accounts listed before, like Box or any of the integrated accounts can definitely do it. So I'm going to show you the front end or the things that we built, but if we've got time and you find it useful, we can show you the back end of how you could build one. So these are some of the apps that we've got. This is not all of them, surprisingly, but the one that I wanted to show you was about our CRM. So we've built kind of a basic CRM system inside of AppSheet, with a portal for the customer and the case management and the flow and the email and the automation all in the back end for our officers to do. In this scenario, it's actually for our members, elected members, councillors, and basically they can raise questions or add information to services. So like our planning service, and say, hey, has this got planning permission, or hey, is this legal, or what are the regulations for this? And basically they can come on, we can click on the actual app, it loads the app, so, and it also links back to the home app, which is there, so you can always go back as well, which I'll show you in a second. This is the your questions page, which gives you information about your questions that you've asked. So here is a test one that I created, which was about creating a video tutorial. The counsellor can see the answer, which is a Google Doc, and that is automatically created, and in that Google Doc has the case information and has the response from myself to myself. So obviously it's very good, because I like to mark my own work. The counsellor can add a note, or even the member of public in this scenario can add a note. If it was a public portal, that is, can add a note in, and it will say this will be sent to the officer. so that they know. They can just add a simple note in. They can attach files using the attachment. So if you're trying to use Google Forms as a way to get data attachments, I'd recommend using AppSheet to do it, because you can attach documents, and you can you can do all of those things, and you can also, and it saves it in Google Drive, you know, under the case number. So it is a good use case for that. You can ask a follow-up question on ours. So, sorry, I heard someone. Is there a question? No? Cool. So a follow-up question is say it's complete, but actually they've asked for another thing, like, where is the video tutorial? So I can ask a follow-up question. I can reopen that case, and then a thank you is just to say thank you to the person that has done it and they've responded. All the updates for the case are in here, so you can see every single update, and you can view all updates and all information about the case, so everything that happens with the case. Raymond.
Can these files and uploads be saved to a shared drive versus a My Drive? Because all of our case files
Yes.
are not in My Drives.
Yes, they can, because this is where this is, and this is where this is. However, I did manage to break it the other day, didn't I, Nathaniel? And it started saving to My Drive, and then we just copied them over, and they started working again. I have no idea how I managed to do that, but I did. But yeah, as default, when you build the application, you say where you want to save it. All of our apps are actually on a shared drive called AppSheet applications, because we're really original. And yeah, all the files can be there. Raymond?
Can they be split up to different shared drives, so that you may have your app sheets on this, but then these files, like student files, student caseloads, counseling, whatever, that they
Yep.
can live in one shared drive and the other app sheet live in another?
Yes, definitely. And you can also, so for example, these updates, that's in its own spreadsheet, and I'd recommend that is that basically any data type, if you're going to use a spreadsheet for it rather than a database such as SQL database or something like that, I'd recommend using a spreadsheet, because it just makes it easier to see the data. But yeah, each one of these, as you can see, as it's like contained, that is actually in a separate spreadsheet called notes, and the or updates. And then this one is actually in a separate spreadsheet called related attached files. You can pull any Excel, not Excel, sorry, and any spreadsheet, Google spreadsheet into this. You can also link multiple spreadsheets to 2 different apps, and that's what we've done here. So this will populate a spreadsheet which is then linked to the second part of this app, which is like the back end of what an officer would do, not the customer. As you can see, the files are attached here, and if you press the little button, it will show you the file that's attached. It uses a very different way of doing it than using just bog standard Drive. So it will be on Drive. It will have permissions on Drive, such as the people that can access that shared drive. But when someone accesses it through the app, you can see it gets it in a different way. So that is actually available because you can use the app, and it will use, I think it uses the person who made the app's permission to access the file. So you don't have to edit the files once they're uploaded to the app. You don't have to edit the file permissions for people to see them. So Raymond, again,
This stuff is absolutely awesome. Both you and Nathaniel, I mean, this back end is something that how are you grouping everything is one of the things that we've been missing.
oh, thank you.
And getting buy-in, because one of the problems is how to set this up at an enterprise interface, enterprise environment. And
Defo.
from us IT folk and our security folk, it's like, we don't want to go down the access database rabbit hole. And how do we know who's doing what, where it is, what data is connected to? How do we audit this? How do we deal with this?
Yeah, and
So Raymond, I'll come back to you on that, because if you're any organization that I've worked with local government for a long time, like how many thousands of spreadsheets, millions of spreadsheets that ICT care about? This is kind of a lot of processes on secure anyway. So actually AppSheet takes it from a really awful spreadsheet that could be shared inappropriately to being controlled, and put the user at the front. So yeah, there is an argument for shadow IT, people going off and doing their own thing, but they do that already with spreadsheets. Like, let's just improve what they're doing and give them the tools to actually be better.
And I think with AppSheet, you've got kind of two ways of doing it. You can say the authenticated user will go to the shares, will go to those things, and will use their own credentials to edit the data in the spreadsheet. And then the audit log in the spreadsheet will say this person, this person, this person. We don't, because default it doesn't. It uses the person that's created it. But inside the application and inside the logs and inside our things, you can see who's done it. So added by Joe Brackenborough, it can pull that quite easily, that information automatically, and you can even stop them from editing that so that they can't even see that. So yes, this is just one case. And I'll copy the case number so I can show you this case in the other side of it. But what I will say also is what we've built is a little notification area. So this one is just to a video tutorial and all the buttons along the bottom. So this will actually take them to a video on Drive, which shows them how to use this application. Sounds counterintuitive, but it made sense to me to show them a video in the application because it should just launch. But basically what they do is they come in and they search. That's a bit of a bug. They search for the department that they want to ask a question of. And we obviously put all our departments here, and we've got cards on the right, which are different parts of that section. So private sector housing, and we've got housing can complain landlords, and we've got housing report and empty property. We've got various different things. If they click the info button, it will take them to our website to that exact page. Or if they press the ask question button, it will automatically choose the what it's related to, so that they don't have to send it to the department. It will automatically assign that department now, private sector housing. They can type in a question title, they can type in their question, they can add other councillors into the system. So if, for example, this is a list of our councillors and these are my colleagues in digital, so I normally just add these in, but it means that the same councillor doesn't raise the same question over and over again. Like each individual one, they can just add them in, and then they know that it's already been raised. So for example, something like graffiti, they could raise it once, but you wouldn't have 20 tickets from each individual councillor, it'd just be one. And they can also attach files just by pressing the new button. It goes to a different form. But it will, once you've completed that, or if you press cancel, it goes back to the original form and you'd see it attached here. It's a live system, so I unfortunately can't show you actually putting something in. So that's the main system for the public or for councillors. And then if I can go back to the home app, which is just here, which brings us back to the corporate home app that we've built. I'll just go to the admin side so I can see all of them. All the ones that are live, and I'll go to the other side of it, which is the officer side. So this is the side, so councillors raise something like there's graffiti in the on one of our public buildings, or they've raised how long does it take to how long does it take to clear graffiti, or who clears graffiti, or any question like that. So it'll come through here. So the first things we did is we built app messages. So it's just a little thing that we can actually just push messages out. And we have an actual app that manages all these apps as well. So it's like one app to rule them all. And basically little messages pop up here and they can come in. These are just the instruction guides for the system, and they can come in, and if they want to say, right, I've read that, thank you for sending me that app, they press the acknowledge button, and yeah, it will go under acknowledgement, and then they won't see that anymore, and that will just synchronize the app. So it's like a little notification, and you can see that's disappeared now. So it's like a little quick notification but built into the app. So if there's a problem with the app, maybe a notification won't work, but if there's something that we're working on, or something, or there's going to be a bit where we have to take it down between these hours, we can add it in here, and then they can see that notification and accept it. And we can actually see who's accepted that notification and who's read those. So it could be good for training, it could be good for mandatory things that they could just come in, they have to read the policy, press acknowledge. So we've kind of built that in as just a side note to this actual process. So I'll show you the actual ticket that I raised. So obviously open and closed are there, but I'll show you the one ticket because it's a live system. I'll show you my ticket. So this is the kind of back end. So this is what I would have had to complete as an officer who's had this question assigned to them from the public or from the counsellor. So the moment it's closed, but the way we have built it is that all the buttons are along the top. So you can inform an SLA change. That will actually ask you for information about the reason for delay, actions will be taken, date of the next response, estimated deadline as well, and that will update the SLA. That's because we're allowed to change the SLA if it's a particularly difficult question, like, can you give me all the documents with the word blah 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 on. With FOIs, we would just say it's too long and we wouldn't do that. But if it was our counsellors and we felt it was important for them to have that information, then we would just change the SLA to say, right, we can do this in 3 weeks, and then obviously do that. So again, all the notes that you saw in the previous side are in here, but because it's the officer side, you actually see a little bit more information when you go into them. We haven't redacted anything. You get to see when it was added, you get to see what the status was, and you get to see all the information that was that's in there. You can see if it's linked to anything else, so we can actually link 2 cases together, and I can show you that as well. So here you can put related cases, you can click add, and then you can link 2 cases together, and you can see there's various different cases from our counsellors. You can you see all the inform SLA, so where I said earlier where we could put 3 weeks, like to get that information for you, it actually comes in a separate spreadsheet, and it's in here as separate, so that the counsellor gets an email to say that someone's done that with that information. But here it's very clear from an audit point of view, every time someone's tried to change the SLA, and obviously something that we can report on to understand, well, why are you changing the SLA 4 times, you know, without good reason. The files that you saw on the other side are here as well. So we've got image of video. So I just changed it recently to look like a card, rather than be like this. You can customize all of these different screens. So these are all preset. This is I think a table view, but there are all different types of views. And then along the top we've got the buttons of updating status, reassign case, which we can which limits who shows up as well. So it's not showing everyone, it just shows the people that are in digital transformation, for example. And yeah, we've got case folders that's there. You can see the response document, which was the same document that the counsellor could see once it's closed. So once it's closed and complete, that document then becomes available for the counsellor to be able to view and read. And yep, you can message the counsellor, you can link case, you can add notes. And yeah, so it's got an SLA on it. It will say how long days are left on the stage. So this one we had days left was 11, and that's working days, not calendar days. Sorry, I forgot my words. And yeah, this is all possible in the back end, which I will show you. I know we've only got about 12 minutes, but I will show you our kind of back end side of it, just so that you can see maybe some of the things you can do in it.
And Joe, can we also save a little bit of time too? Because I want to build upon something that Nathaniel said in the chat about working with the community to make more generic app sheets for public sector.
Yeah, definitely. I will take the next 2 minutes just to give you a quick thing. So I will show you quickly how you can create an app sheet then. So sheets.new. Oh, but spell it right. So if I go sheets.new, so in a new sheet, your title thing is like the columns of a database. So you can put ID because you need an ID with all databases, all things. You can type in certain things like, I don't know, color. Oh, I spelled it the American way. Yeah, links to other things like web links. And then like you can with big data or app scripts, you can actually now see AppSheet and you can create the app. If you've got data in there, not only will it create the app, it will also look at the data and kind of understand how that data is being kind of linked. So if you had another tab or another spreadsheet and you had that ID in there, and that's how you're linking the two spreadsheets together, it tries to do that for you. But if you're good at sheets in terms of creating formulas, that's all you need. So I haven't made such a great app, but this is the app that I've made, and it would have, there you go. So it's that smart. It knows that I typed in color and it says green, yellow, orange, red, blue. And if we look at the data, it would have, if I press add, there you go. So now the input form for that, and bearing in mind, I only put 3 rubbish fields in, which was ID, which is decided, okay, I'll create you a unique ID automatically. I will see your color and give you a lovely picker of the colors. So I'm going to choose black because I'm boring. And the link that you wrote, well, I know that's a web link. So you're welcome to enter in like www.bbc.com and save that data. And there you go. And we've got a graph, we've got the spreadsheet here. And if I go back to the spreadsheet, once it's done its synchronization, which it has done, you will now see in here ID black. There you go. And so I've taken a spreadsheet. I didn't really give it much thought. As you saw, I did sheets 5T or sheets new, created some headings in there, pressed create my app sheet. It's created me an app now, and that technically is collecting information in a really good way automatically, without me doing anything advanced or any coding or anything in there. It's there. Cool. I will let you. I was over my 2 minutes. Sorry.
No, this is amazing. There's a lot of questions in chat, and I want to make sure we get to that. But Nathaniel, maybe I don't know, some of what you're saying ties in a little bit to some of the chat or the conversation. So
Sure.
yeah.
So I think there's brilliant templates on AppSheet that you could look at and work out a lot of things. One thing that I really like about this community is that we're focused around public services. I think there's a lot of work that we could do together to build up a template of apps that are unique to government. I know that Brandon and Jason have mentioned like it's low code, no code, but is it truly low code, no code? Like how much training do you have to put for that? So to do the foundation course, the training says it takes 2 days, which I think is fair if you want to really get your head around different functionality. But after that 2-day training, like unless your skills are, you know, you've never opened a spreadsheet before, you will be able to make an app. And I think it's also on your private account as well, like your personal account. So if you can make an app like over the weekend quite easily to see how much easier it is than having a spreadsheet that is awful and making that try and work out of a process.
I think you can literally take a spreadsheet and, like I did, and just make sure your headings are there and make sure you flatten your data, which basically means don't have multiple bits of data in the same field. So if you've got various different things, just split them out into columns and then just create it as an app sheet and see what it does. And you can just do that with all of your spreadsheets and just see what it does and see how smart it is. And if you've got 20% of the way in, you could, like with the app we've just created with the color and the website, you know, if you want to add another field in, go back in, add some more in, regenerate the structure, and then it will do something with it and it will be smart enough to kind of understand. Definitely just do it and just see what happens. Sorry, Nathaniel, I cut you off.
I don't think like, yes, it helps if you understand data, it helps if you've used a spreadsheet, but I don't think they should be barriers to it. I remember the first time I used a spreadsheet as a young kid and being like blown away by how cool a spreadsheet is. Like I get the same feeling when I use
Nathaniel.
I got the same feeling when I used AppSheet. Like it was just like something else. It was just amazing to use as a product. And
Everyone else says Action Man, but Nathaniel's like, Mama, Papa, come see my spreadsheet.
it's kept me employed, so I don't care.
Oh, you're amazing at it, Nathaniel. You're a genius in many respects. Yeah, but I just love the fact that you are so passionate about spreadsheets.
But yeah, I think AppSheet is like do the free training. It says 2 days. Like what is 2 days to learn something that could save you like hours and hours of time in somebody else's awful spreadsheet? It's not really anything at all. That'd be my quest to all of the people on the call is by the next coffee hour, have an app, make an app.
So to that end, if we were to have a follow-up, a maker session, or just to build something, what would you ask folks? Would you ask folks to, per your comments, play around, or could folks come with questions?
Yeah, I think a bit of both. Like if you've got a willingness to learn a new technology and you want to improve on the processes, then come and then let's try and make something together. Like we maybe started our journey a little bit more than some others, but I think it's a journey that it's worth going, everybody coming on.
I'm a big fan of having outputs, which is, so I'd like, if we have a session, let's target ourselves with something that is very achievable, but let's build an app out of it or a template out of it, and something really simple, something that, you know, might even help people, something like, I don't know, a form that collects information on FOIs or a form that does something, and let's build it together. Let's go through the process together and let's learn together, because Nathaniel and I won't know everything, and most of the time I know something, Nathaniel knows something else, and we both come at stuff in very different ways. So you'll see that that there are many ways to kind of do it as well.
And I should share as well that there is actually an AppSheet community. Not to, we want you to stay within here. They're not, specifically focused on public sector, but there's a big community. Peter, maybe you could share. I don't know if you have the link handy. If not, I can dig it up. And I think there's an event coming up.
Yeah, and also, yeah, I want to second that. It's not public sector focused, so there'd probably be a lot of distractions in there, but there is an upcoming like entry level app jam event that is it's just kind of like getting started, like what these guys are describing, and so I'll paste the link there. That might be useful in addition to any other public sector follow-ups you guys have.
Also, the documentation for AppSheet is second to none. It's like, Google it. Like, honestly, like I don't remember how to link rows half the time, and the amount of times that I just say, I can't remember how you use this formula. In the same respects, you might not know how to use the formula in Sheets. If you just Google it and type the word AppSheet afterwards, or how do I do this, AppSheet. So how do I build a booking system, AppSheet? There'll always be someone's like, oh, hi, yeah, you can look at mine on the community, and there'll be a template there that you can have a look at and go, yeah, that does like 50% of what I want, so I'm going to steal that. Like, most of the time we just kind of Frankenstein an app together, because why reinvent the wheel?
I just want to make sure, I think there were a couple questions in the chat that we did not get to. Julie, you had asked, and this ties into Nathaniel's point about actually skirting some of the license fees for programs set up to do this. You mentioned Monday.com. Nathaniel, Joe, I don't know if you that, if this reflects similarly.
Yes,
I've used it. I can give you my honest opinion. Monday.com is great. Like, it is really good, Monday.com. It's very different in the sense that it kind of presents you almost like an Airtable spreadsheet to start with then some actionable things that you can do from that spreadsheety kind of thing. And then you can have a Kanban view of that data, or you can have a blah, blah, blah view of that data. This doesn't do that. This very much, you create your own screens, or you choose the predicted ones that are there. You can definitely make it look like an app, like something that you've built from scratch using HTML kind of thing. That's my personal opinion.
yeah, I think with
I don't know.
the Monday.com or any app, like, look at the app and think, what data is actually going in there? What are you trying to get out? And like, you can make that in AppSheet. Once you've got your input data, like, there's so many different views. You can have a calendar view, you can have a Kanban view, you can do all different types of view. First of all is getting the data that you want in there. And sometimes, like, these other bits of software, the hard bit is that they don't want to capture, or they haven't got a field that captures what you want to see. Whereas you can make your app the way that you want it to be.
We're at time. But one little bee in my bonnet around these integrations is, what is the source of truth? Like, if there's one professional hill I will die upon, it is that. And it's been challenging because, simply getting the data in is one thing, but like, how do I enable the user to change their record only in the database without messing with anyone else, without seeing anyone else? Those sorts of things are where the real pain comes into play. So,
Julie, with that point, like, this is what AppSheet I think is really good at.
Okay.
In a spreadsheet, you might have to go on the, like, who's messed up your spreadsheet, looking at the audit history. Here, you can say you're only allowed to look at your records. Like, if you update it, I'm going to take the formula that says, I want to know who the logged in user is that has updated that as well. So for security wise, like, somebody having a spreadsheet where anybody can, sort the data, completely rinse your data and make it awful, to actually just giving them a view that they can see their own data, like, AppSheet for me wins every time. And as I sadly admitted, I love a spreadsheet. So yeah.
I wanted to show you, it's like one simple line of code that says user email equals the field of the data that you want them to. So in our mind, there's like an assigned ticket, for example. So if it's assigned to a person, you do user email and then brackets, and I can show you on one of our slices of data on your cases. So this is it. It's assigned officer equals user email. So now you will only see, so it says row filter for slice on your cases. So it's going to run through my cases, and every single row on this column assigned officer in the spreadsheet is going to check that it has my user email in it, and then it's going to show that, and you can test that. And then that literally locks it down to logged in users having access to only their data that is assigned to them that they can edit.
That's cool.
That's what I was going to do.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
It is really simple, and I think if you can use spreadsheet formulas, then you 100% can use AppSheet formulas. It takes you a little while to get your head round, like the way of working. The community is amazing. Like, I've asked so many silly questions on there, and no one has a go at me and tells me I'm an idiot, apart from Nathaniel. He's really cruel, and I'm only joking. But yeah, definitely, like, it is well worth the effort, I would say.
I know we're going over. I'm fine run as long as our speakers, are you guys okay going a little bit over? Because there are a few more questions I would love to get to if possible. Is that okay? Yeah. Ray, I see your hand up, but I just want to make sure. Brian had asked a question about if there are good references for expressions or a beginner's guide to expressions. Anybody have any resources there?
Yeah, I can drop a link in there. But the documentation is it is amazing. It is brilliant. So, yeah, all the formulas are there. And a lot of them are similar.
Do you have stuff other than just the document, like in the AppSheet documentation? Because I've looked through that. It is helpful, but I was just wondering if you had anything outside of the AppSheet documentation.
Okay. Yeah, like maybe if we do join up as a community, then we can have a look at what you're trying to accomplish that you might feel is outside of the documentation.
Yeah, I think once you get your head around how to kind of construct them, and it is very similar to doing them on a spreadsheet, that's when the documentation comes into its own, I guess, because then you can like, I need an in, or I want to look up. So I do look up. Oh, okay, well, what's the next thing? I want to look up this column, and then from this column, and then I want to bring back this column. And then once you've got that, you're like, okay, oh yeah, it's bringing back the right thing. And then you can kind of expand on it. Yeah, I think it'd be good to show you in the session and kind of work through it together.
Also, Brandon, you had a question about if Joe and Nathaniel had set out to convert existing forms to AppSheets. I don't know if that got addressed. Joe, Nathaniel, have you guys done anything along those lines?
Yeah, so one that we
go on.
Go on, Joe.
Go on. There's a lag. Go on.
One that we had was for COVID tests that we wanted to convert over to a sheet, and we had problems with I think they wanted to upload a file or something, so we just used AppSheet. It was easier, and they wanted a location-based question as well, so it just made more sense to make it out of AppSheet rather than using Google Forms, because I think we've discussed multiple times like where forms can take you.
Yeah, and I'd say we'll probably replace our Google Forms with this. All our internal Google Forms, definitely. Our external forms, if I can get the customer portal set up so that our customers don't actually go through that, and then they can see all the different services and any questions they've asked or any problems they've raised, then I think we will. And we'll get less and less forms on the website and more through AppSheet.
I'm blown away by what you all have done. I think there's still I think there's two issues. There's one is technically, could we learn it and could we do it? And I think the answer is yes. And I think the support materials, the engagement strategies is really more where I get concerned. I don't know that we have the same technical expertise that clearly you all do. And I see a big trap here of setting up a need to have like a dedicated team or somebody that's actually building these apps, maintaining them and supporting them. And that's fundamentally different than I think the strength that we've seen in the rollout and engagement when we're looking at forms or tables or spreadsheets or something like that. And I guess that's where I'm still hung up just a little bit on how to move forward. I'm fascinated by AppSheet. I've built several myself. And there have been several instances where I've gotten into it. I've been really proud of what I've built. And then I've decided to bomb out and build it in tables or forms because I got lost in AppSheet instead of the actual just simple thing I was trying to solve that forms could do. And so that's kind of at least where I am. I'm definitely way more interested in how you engaged the teams, how you support them, and how you leveled up the program side to actually develop an AppSheet.
Yep.
I'd also say that's one of the things that I kind of want to do, and it's a big vision that I keep telling Nathaniel and Kate about, which is, wouldn't it be fantastic if the people that really want to be kind of an expert is like, couldn't we combine together and come up with a government kind of templates, official, unofficial templates? And I know we always say the same thing. We would have to kind of have quite stringent ways of doing it, make them generic enough so that anyone can take them, but then almost be like supported templates for people so that you can start on AppSheet. And if you have a problem with it, hopefully our templates will have some documentation. So you're almost like getting a free piece of software to use in the way. And I think if we took some really good examples, I'm sure Google and AppSheet employees would help us with them if we were going to build something. Yeah, and I kind of want that to come out of like maybe some more maker sessions or some more things that we could actually put some templates in that someone could come along. They don't have to develop it. They can just take it as the application as it is and just kind of use it as the process kind of works.
And I'd say, Brandon, around engagement, have you ever sent a spreadsheet to somebody that hates spreadsheets? Like, there's no engagement at all. If you send them an app and say, like, this is the same data, but on an app, and you can deal with this, you can see this summary, you can see this, you can add data here. Like, the engagement, honestly, it isn't a hard sell to give senior management at all. Like, if one thing, is harder in the fact that it's going to give you more work because they're like, okay, this needs to be transformed, this needs to be transformed. So it's not a hard sell.
Well, I guess actually that's the question. When you say it generates more work, are you talking about more work coming back to your team to expand, or are you really talking about, because we've really, again, with Workspace, the power has been empowering frontline users to engage, build, and do more complex things than they've ever been able to do. And I is that part of your strategy? Is this a transference of knowledge to where they're going to be running and building, or is this building
100%?
Your team
is where
to be able to do that?
Where I want it to go. Like, you know, if people are going off making thousands of spreadsheets, like, let's make better spreadsheets. That's the next step up. Like, once they can make good spreadsheets, let's make an app. Like, let's get everything in there. It's simple enough that I think there'll be a certain cohort of people that can do this. They'll train other people and then, you know, like, progress it rather than just having one person that can make stuff. Because I think that is the trap that Temple was saying about earlier, that somebody, like, we've all got these access databases that somebody made up who was like completely crazy, and we still have to manage that system. But I don't see it in the same way, because you've got access to the data. It's a lot easier. Like, if you hate the app, you can just go back to the spreadsheet as well. Like you're not tied into the app like the same way that you were with, say, Microsoft Access.
I do want to, Ray has been raising his hand for a while, so I do want to make sure, Ray, that you get a chance to voice your question.
Now there's a three-part. I had a two-part. One of the problems we're having, and one of the reasons our management actually shies away from AppSheets, is they got away from where they lost control, where they actually had developers in our school, but they couldn't keep up with them. Things got out of date. People leave. Documentation. Who has what access? And then where is what, when, and how? And it just became a nightmare. Then on top of that, the access database conundrum going every which way, and everybody trying to do their own thing. No standards, no accountability, no nothing. And that's, to be honest, that's their fear of AppSheets. They see that as a problem rather than a solution. And
Can I jump in
Sure.
on that one? So we actually, and I mentioned it, I did mention it amongst a lot of rambling, so I apologize. But we actually have an app that can control the other apps. So we actually have an app where you can add other apps to that home screen. So you can go in and simply go through. And if you want to change someone's permissions, I can show you. You literally press the officer, you search for the officer, you go into the officer, it then pulls out the officer's spread from the spreadsheet. And you can go in and literally just say they're not allowed that app. They've actually gone now, take all their access away. So I think when you build an app, and this is the corporate app rather than this, is what I want to do is not build an app and then leave it and then it's gone, right? Or it just stays as it is for 20 years. I want to build it, do everything we can, build all the admin functions in a separate app, build the customer functions in another app, but make our admins, like the people that don't know how to do this, use the system to control who has access, to control the categories, to control adding new categories in so that it's done. So we have there's almost like 3 apps to the same one, and you can actually build them in one if you want to be really smart and do all the permissions, but it kind of makes sense to have 3 separate apps, and just you can actually do that so that when that developer leaves, you don't need it, because as long as they've developed the ways to keep the app up to date, you can continue using it. Is how we've done it.
no, that's cool. It's also the knowledge where we have 1 or 2 people who will buy in, get it, connect to it, then they're gone, and then everyone going, what are we doing? And that's a huge problem. And it would require a buy-in, not just from our management, but from key personnel and departments to maintain that knowledge base, not just within 1 or 2 people, but within the agency itself. And that's a hurdle. I think, Brandon, that's basically what you're looking at too. That's a hurdle that we need to get across. How do we make this so it's just like word processing, just like that spreadsheet, so that this is something that is just an everyday, everyone, how do I deal with it in my enterprise? And it's not a developer, it's getting beyond that and focusing on the workflow concepts versus I'm going to program this. And I think maybe that's a better approach to management and other people of basically dealing with that. That's a selling problem we have with our management. And how do I buy into that? Now, my 2 questions I originally had was, I've tried to build multiple things. There are places where I get stuck trying to get this workflow concept to do something. For example, journaling. We're trying to deal with a journaling for security. We want the person who puts up a journal to be able to edit their stuff, but they need to view everyone else's, and they need to be able to search here, search there, depending upon time, day, whatever it is. I don't want them changing anybody else's stuff, but I want them to be able to change their stuff if they needed to update or to get permission to do that. Also, so supervisors can view and agree and change and things, and to see the most recent and even download to searchable spreadsheets that's not impacting the original data. Or be able to view that within the application to be able to do reports, to do things. So, you know, we had certain security level X happen, and I need to do a report, and that's going to the board or administration and things like that. Or to be able to tie that in, and here's our security dashboard of all the occurrences that have occurred over this month or year or whatever, and who's had to deal with it, how was it dealt with, all of those fun things. Then the last thing we're dealing with is we have a lot of defined databases already. So for example, with students, we have a student information. Why do I need to keep putting in the same information over and over again? I need to be able to tie into that, to pull that data in for our caseloads, for our things. But then I need to extend that or work with that of how and where am I looking at things. So so that they're not our teachers or professionals aren't having to type in all the same data again and again and again and again, or even once. If they can tie it in, this is Johnny, and now everything to do with Johnny from the SIS that we're allowing to come into this app comes in, and now I can make my extension, my reports and things, and then that goes to the supervisors, the parents, or whatever that's going on.
You can definitely do that. So each data, you can link multiple data sources into your app, and you can simply say, these are the keys that are linking all of these tables. So for example, on ours, we could pull in like various different data from various different systems, and as long as we've got something that can match them up. For example, I imported all our physical servers and the applications that run on them. So I did some network scans, I pulled that information, and then I linked it all up so that I could click on a system, for example, one of our systems, Uniform, which is a building control and planning system for our local government. And then it told me all the servers that are in it. And then it told me all the users that use it. And you can 100% do that in AppSheet. And I'd say if you can build documentation of how you then manage that app through another app, for example, our app that you can add, change the officer's permissions, you can do those things, and you have documentation. What's the difference between that and a company that has built that? If you've got good documentation and it works, actually the only time it goes wrong is when you add new developments in. If you're happy to stay as it is because it meets the functionality, then it's less of a risk. For us, the only time I break stuff is when I try and develop it. But if we said to people, no, that's just how it works, like suppliers tell us every day, you say, wouldn't it be great if it just did this or just did that? And you know, no offense Google, but even Google, oh yeah, that does sound cool, but no, it doesn't do that. Whereas when it's AppSheet, we go, oh yeah, we can have a look at doing that, and then we do it, and then sometimes we break it, and then it becomes a little bit unstable. But most of the time we just change it. But if we said to people, no, that's how it is now, if you want a sprint to kind of do all that development, then we'll add that in, and you can have a 2-week sprint where we go through the top ones that you want to change on your application, and then you do it in that scenario, and then it becomes less of a problem, I'd say. But just my opinion.
Wow, this has been such. Oh, sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, Nathaniel.
I was just gonna go back to Brandon about like whether people should be developing or a team of developers, because I can see that's a barrier for you. When we recruit people, we're happy enough that they've got skills using Excel, and then we get to actually see their skills using a spreadsheet, and they're quite poor. Like, if you want to improve your staff, like, you have to give them training. And I think this is just another string to their bow. Like, they can learn another skill. It's going to take 2 days for them to get the hang of it, and then you're not having to do developing for them, and it improves their spreadsheet skills, improves how they feel about data and use data. And the same way that when we moved over to Workspace, people were used to sending a file over email when we was in Microsoft, that they can actually then collaborate with people. That same step up that took time for people to get their head around. Like, again, it may take a little extra time, but there'll be people that can do that in your organization.
I don't disagree. I think it is a skill to learn. I think it's a bigger jump to learn than something like Google Forms. And that's where my issue is on survivability. If it's a massive investment to get people to AppSheet level. And let's not forget that AppSheet actually came by way of a purchase out of an evolution that came from AppMaker, which we built a lot of stuff in AppMaker that was then deprecated. And I have a real concern. I don't think Forms is going away, but I don't know that I've seen AppSheet we've been at it a couple of years now, and I don't think that I've seen AppSheet take the same route with program line staff in adoption, excitement, and rollout. It's taken much longer than it did with something like a Tables or Google Forms, Google Sheets, or something like that. So I don't know that it's on parity with Workspace. And I guess that's where my hesitation. At what point in time does Google decide that the investment in AppSheet isn't panning out the same way? At what point in time is the investment in AppSheet so critical that getting frontline users that kind of skill is paramount for us to be able to build workflows and stuff like that? I just don't know that I'm there yet. I'm excited. I want to play in it. I want to learn. I don't know that I'm there yet for kind of that long term.
Yeah, we got that with AppMaker as well. So.
Yeah, we got the same thing. I think Google need to give AppSheet to all their Workspace customers of a certain level, and we need all access, because actually you don't say to us, oh, you can create forms, but you're not going to have a number box, or you're not going to have this. And that's the only way Google will get AppSheet kind of going, crazy, and like people just loving it, because it's going to be part of the vanilla package of Google Workspace, and it will happen. I have seen AppSheet change their focus in development and improve their integration with Google, because it is a bit, because it can integrate with many things, but I have seen a kind of lean towards Google, the definite styling of Google, the sharing of Google now. It is coming in as a product that is seen to be seamless between the platform. So I think you're right. We've all been hurt by AppMaker and wasted some of our time. It would be good for Google to kind of give us a little bit more commitment on that.
I'm sorry, Peter, I don't know. I don't want to put you on the spot. I'd be interested in your perspective, but I also, don't want to force. I know this is kind of a sensitive topic. I also probably have about a couple more minutes before we need to close out. This is probably like the longest coffee hour we've had, which I think means that we're onto something. And this is a really exciting topic. And I think, Brandon, as you're talking, one of the things that occurs to me is just this whole kind of broader topic of digital skills, like digital learning. How do we engage more in our, or help others in our organizations to build and grow their digital skill set? I have colleagues who are actually doing a lot of work on that, and I'm actually going to reach out to them to see if we can have a continued conversation on that. Because I feel like, this has gotten to a very philosophical level, and, anyway. But anyway, you probably have time for maybe one or two more questions. And Peter, if you have any comments, I think we're very curious, but.
I'm glad to at least, there's only, I can't represent, the entire roadmap for Workspace, but what I can say is that, a couple things from an external solution that's been acquired. There's an immense amount of integration work that a small team is responsible for, and it takes a decent amount of time. The roadmap moving forward is almost exclusively focused on Workspace and how AppSheet becomes better integrated into Workspace and supports the idea of extending what you can do in that environment and how you can make it easier for like the Workspace persona of user. And that hasn't been the exclusive focus up until now, or up until recently, I should say. So I guess from that perspective, like I'm encouraged because I agree that, like, you know, in the past, AppSheet has been available sort of like agnostic of the productivity suite, right? It's been paired very closely with Workspace, but also is available to external data sources. Moving forward, a lot of that focus is just on better integrations with Workspace and supporting kind of the Workspace workflows. Automation is one of those like kind of key pieces that, right, it's basic today and will grow a lot moving forward. So I guess for how it's being supported internally, how different, how we're working with individual sort of app teams within Workspace, I'm pretty encouraged about how it's going to move forward.
Julie,
For what it's worth.
thank you so much, Peter. Julie, did you want to ask your question?
Oh, just what I wanted to say thanks for the presenters, and also, you know, just make a plug for hosting some sort of paid training event. I know people's time was valuable, and I would happily like pay someone to build something for us. I'm confident I could do it if I sat down to do it. I just have too much to do. Like, I don't have 2 full days. And that said, I think I would be able to get easily approved funding for training, but you know, it would take me 6 months to get a contract signed for 2 days worth of work. So I suspect other people are in similar situations, and if we could set something up, that would be amazing.
Thank you for raising that, Julie. I'm noting this, and Peter, I'll be lots to talk about, but I also have some folks on my team who do a lot of learning. So a couple notes on potential events or topics to have following this one.
Could I ask that maybe if we, you know, you said that you'd happily buy an app. My vision is to kind of take our apps, potentially get some help from Google, and kind of make them agnostic, and kind of put that template in place, put that documentation in place, so that you know how to use it. And it's almost like you can buy an app, but it will be free, obviously, and we'll put it as a template for people to use. I'm happy to do that, and I think then we could all look at maybe, if we do have time, to continue developing it.
Sure. I mean, that works too.
I'm glad you mentioned that, John. I just want to make I was typing a comment in there to make a quick plug for the concept of templates and how anyone can create their own and share their own templates. Some partners do it, and they offer services around those templates, and other people just, you know, do it based on their use cases. But I mean, Joe and Nathaniel, I know you guys are familiar with this, but that's something that's really easy in the community setting. Like, if there's just like a fundamental pattern of an app, that's a good starting point, or even just a feature. It's easy to share those. Sometimes the templates in the public directory right now, they may be a little bit too niche, or they don't fit. They're not a good starting point for exactly what you're trying to do. But anyone can create these, and you guys know best some of these specific problems you're trying to solve.
Well, I think that's a great place to close things out. So, you know, this was just so, I mean, first of all, just the example you guys presented is, you know, from where I'm sitting, pretty mind-blowing. Just so comprehensive, but I think also the conversation about how to apply this, how to replicate this, how to continue to build as a community is what makes me really excited. So we'll be following up with more information about how to continue this conversation, how to set up something where we can build as a community. But in the meantime, do take a survey if you get a chance, just so we can continue to hold amazing events like this. But yeah, another thanks to you, Joe, to you, Nathaniel. Peter, thank you so much for joining, and thank you everybody for your questions, for your conversation. This is why we have these coffee hours. So it was really fantastic. Thank you all. Have a great weekend, and hope to see you online. Keep up the good work.
Great work, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. See you
you.
soon.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.